Hello and welcome. Good evening, viewers. I'm Nitin Gokhale and I'm speaking to you live from New Delhi, having just returned from Leh after visiting Ladakh and observing the disengagement between Indian and Chinese forces on the north and south bank of Pangong Tso and the first phase of the agreement that is being implemented along the line of actual control. So we are asking the question almost a week after it was announced in Parliament by Defence Minister Rajnath Singh that both sides have agreed for disengagement. Remember, this is not de-escalation but disengagement in Pangong Tso, or both on the north and the south bank. So we are asking this question: Ladakh disengagement, what India gained and what China lost. And joining me on the program to discuss is someone who has had a special privilege of commanding a battalion on the Pangong Tso, Colonel S. Dinny, who took premature retirement a couple of years ago. He's joining me from Kollam in Kerala. That's the beauty of digital world. I'm in Delhi, he's in Kollam, and I've come back from Leh, where again connectivity has improved tremendously from what I remember from 1999 during the Kargil conflict. So welcome, Colonel Dinny. But before we come to you, let me talk about what is the latest update. As we know from the pictures and videos released by the Indian Army of the dismantling, the disengagement, and the process that has begun. So, in fact, it is very revealing, and it's actually provides the visual evidence of what exactly is happening. So, as you can see here in the video, the Chinese are dismantling the bunkers that put up, or sangars as they call it, the stone, shelters. They are removing themselves because that is one of the points of the agreements, that they have to dismantle and restore the landforms as they existed on in April 2020. So the PLA post on the south bank of Pangong Tso has been dismantled. They're taking away all the material they had with them. As you can see here, they're coming down the slopes. Look at the terrain. This will give you an idea of what the terrain is, how tough it is, not just during the winter, but even I'm sure during the summer. They're carrying those heavy loads to their light vehicles because they've been told to clear the complete area. Now, remember, the temperatures here, I'm told, had gone up or gone down to minus 47 at night. Here you can see a large body of soldiers, PLA troops, walking with their rucksacks, or pittu as it is called in the Indian Army's language, and also some of these vehicles. Only some tents are remaining, and the expectation is that the phase of, remember this, restoration of landforms, they are actually using bulldozers to flatten the area where they had built some of these structures, and are restoring to its original form. And that's exactly what is happening over the past 1 week or so. Hopefully, this process will end on Wednesday, that is tomorrow evening. And then 48 hours later, the two corps commanders will meet again to take up the other friction points. But Colonel Dinny, your memories of Pangong Tso and your memories of dealing with the Chinese are not too old. So, what do you think has been achieved in this particular? We, of course, spoke about 3 days ago to each other on the same program. But this visual evidence, what does it signify really?
Firstly, thank you, Nitin, for inviting me to your show. It's a really privilege to be on your show. Now, and also I must mention that I think somewhere down the line, if you see the kind of reporting which has been happening, I think StratNews Global has been consistent in in bringing out the facts, and that, I think that is a reflection today yet again that whatever is being seen, narratives can be there, but facts remains facts, and that's what I want to bring out. If you
Thank
see
you.
from day one, there has been a narrative, and there's no attempt to create as if land, a large land has been captured, and the Chinese have entrenched themselves. Now you see the way the Chinese are going back. That itself, many of the including army chiefs and all have commented that it doesn't look a very tactical kind of retreat. and that itself shows that the aim was just to convey a message to us, and that they have not been able to gain any strategic kind of objectives, if at all they had any. They are making a move back. Number one. Number two is that, as always, that with the Chinese, they are very symbolic in whatever they do. And like the time when this placing themselves was happening, you found a lot of satellites and photographs coming. The fact that we are able to see these pictures happening on ground shows that the Chinese want us to see, want us to believe that they are they can be trusted, and they want to go back, and they are serious about disengagement. And I think we should be I don't want to put it into who won and who lost, but definitely what we can say is that India as such must can feel good enough that we have come stronger than what it was before the start of this whole issue.
Indeed. In fact, let's bring out a historical fact which a lot of people lose sight of. The fact is, and according to the map that you have been very kind to provide to us right at the beginning of this crisis in June 2020, if you can have that finger area map again, the perception of the Chinese about the LAC has always been that they are at finger 4, or their LAC runs through finger 4. And we have always maintained and have never wavered from there about our line of perception of the LAC going through finger 8, as you have very rightly pointed out, the map made by yourself, by your own experience there. And so one of the bigger points of the agreement here is that the Chinese have been forced to go east of the finger 8, which is at the Sirija base that they have, which means they are not able to come to their perception of the LAC, which is at finger 4. While we have retained, we have also prevented them from coming across our perception of the LAC. I think this is one of the bigger points of this entire disengagement agreement, and this has been lost sight of. If you can explain that a little bit to our viewers, what does it signify really?
Shri Nitin, this is actually huge. Why I say huge is because anybody who has served on the north bank of Pangong Tso knows what it means when you say that you're stopping Chinese from coming up to finger 4. Of course, we are also not going to finger 8, but the ground reality is that that we were under a disadvantageous position there. We were in a disadvantageous position there because there is no track between finger 3 and finger 4. That is, there is no vehicular track between finger 3 and finger 4. There's only a foot track, and all Indian patrols could only go by foot right up till finger 8. And the Chinese could come, the moment our patrols used to move out, they could come on vehicles, and they could, if they wanted, they could stop us, much between finger 4 and 5 itself. So that is the advantage which they had. Now to reach an agreement in which they also will not come to finger 4, firstly it will drastically reduce the kind of conflict which otherwise happens. I'm of the firm belief that the trigger for this entire issue has happened on the north bank of Pangong Tso, and that is because both sides do not allow the patrols to complete their task, and that is how this escalated into physical violence and placing themselves and all those things. So that is a huge thing for both the peace and tranquility also, and as also I think India's claim towards this area also is not, it doesn't go down, actually it goes up, because we should understand that it is the Chinese who had built the road till finger 4, and to say that on an agreement, and I hope it remains, although I know it is a temporary, they've used that it is temporarily we are stopping the patrolling, but yes, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing that the troops will not come in close contact, and there will be lesser conflict, and also our claim towards finger 8, I think, will be that much more, because the Chinese are not coming till finger 4.
Exactly. I think that is one of the key points of those who have served there and I know the topography or the history of that area. That has been the biggest, the core issue for India, and I think India has achieved the resolution of that core issue or the core problem, really. That's one thing that has happened. Secondly, as almost everyone has agreed, military or political leaders, that India's actions on 29th and 30th of August on the south bank of Pangong Tso, followed by Richinla, Rizangla occupation and taking the tanks up to those places, and a sort of aggressive action or readjustment of troops above Finger 3 or Finger 4, above the the earlier Chinese deployment, has had given India the equal footing for negotiations. So I think one of the things that comes out of here, as far as India's gains are concerned, is the confidence and the kind of aggressive and well thought out operations that were done to overcome the disadvantage that India had faced in Finger 4. Would you agree to that?
Absolutely, there's no doubt, Srinitin. The first mover advantage the Chinese had. They had caught us, in a surprise that not that they are violating those coming to Finger 4 and between Finger 4 and 8, but the scale at which they came, and and also the scale of violence which happened. This was a surprise thing, which I think Indian troops also would have not, was not initially, they would have been taken aback. But after this first mover advantage was over, and after our operationally and logistically we had stabilized, I think then it was a question of just our resolve coming ahead. And I think all the troops, from the troops right up till all the army commanders, the commanders on ground, right up till all the commanders up the chain, they showed a firm resolve that come what may, we are not going to blink here. And that is how, when the Chinese changed the status quo by placing themselves between Finger 4 and Finger 8, we changed the status quo by occupying those Kailash heights, the ranges on the Kailash, the heights on the Kailash ranges, and thereby attaining a parity as far as the change of status quo is concerned. Yes, I know those heights are within our territory, but and again, people who have served in the LAC knows that there is a certain status quo which can be changed even within from our own location also. So that change of status quo was conducted by our troops in a very professional manner. And I think the message was received there. And now, having parity as far as the status quo change was done, then it was just a matter of time. The Chinese seized to it, because this game will never end. Now you go and occupy somewhere else, then we also have multiple choices to go and occupy some other heights. So it's not going to end. I think so. It's the best interest of both the nations and for peace and tranquility that now, after having achieved parity as far as the status quo is there along the LAC, now we are moving back to the status quo as of April 2020.
Exactly. So the second gain, as I see it, is also the confidence about the systems that have been put in place. Huge induction of number of troops, infrastructure that was already there, sort of held up very well. And looking at the number of troops there, by one estimation, one can say that additional 30,000 troops or 40,000 troops were inducted into Ladakh, where 10 years ago, 11 years ago, I remember there used to be just 2 battalions for Eastern Ladakh. From there, we have come to this stage where the infrastructure and the logistics supported that kind of induction and held firm. That is one of the gains. The other gain I would like you to comment upon, I think is one of the gains, is also that now the national security apparatus or national security system of India is firmly has firmly reoriented itself towards looking at China as the biggest adversary. The Pakistanis can be dealt with whenever required, but I think this was already happening. This has just got hastened, and I think that is something that we should be looking at in a positive angle.
Absolutely, there's no doubt. And in every dark clouds have a silver lining, they say. So the entire thing, what we can see here is that the focus of the nation is there on this area. Nitin, I think probably you or some other journalist were one of the few people who actually knew what is North Bank and South Bank before this entire issue happened. Before this entire issue happened, nobody knew that I was, even my family members didn't know that, I was serving in Pangong Tso or something. But today, even, my closest relative, okay, what about those Finger 4? And everybody is, very clear. So that kind of focus, public focus has come now to, to the area. And therefore, naturally, you will find a lot of focus on the infrastructure. And as you rightly mentioned, there's a huge, built up of forces, and those are going to be there for a very, quite a good amount of time. And a lot of operational experiences we would have learned from this, the induction and the de-induction and the logistic part. I think we have already almost seen through a winter. So I think a lot of logistic lessons would have been learned. So I think this has, in the long run, this particular episode will be, seen as something, as a positive for improving our operational balance
Yeah.
in, as far as the northern front is concerned, to a huge extent. There's no doubt on that.
Indeed. In fact, but of course, one must always look at the cautionary points that one must impose on oneself as a nation, and as the army, I'm sure, is doing. That while the disengagement is proceeding apace, and there will be discussions on the other friction points like Depsang and Gogra and Hot Spring. Remember, the viewers must know that the Chinese haven't de-escalated. Their forces have gone back just about 100 kilometers, 150 kilometers, or maybe 200 kilometers. But the speed with which they came and went back also shows that their infrastructure on their side is very good. We have to match up to that, and we have to be ever vigilant. I think going forward is what we have to really do. So on that note, there is a question for both of us, but I would like you to answer this from Manu Singh, where he says, "What would it be? What would be their next move? It's retreating now, but I don't trust them."
Uh, uh, it's a common question which Sri Manu has asked now, and I think this is the thing which is there almost in every Indian's mind, that can we trust the Chinese? But let me assure you, Sri Manu, that the concerned people will be the troops on ground and the commanders up the chain, because they will be the people who will be the most cautious. They will be watching each move the Chinese make. And also, we must remember that there was a Galwan incident which happened, that during the disengagement and thing which happened. So everybody who are on ground, they know their job. They will be extremely cautious. So they will be, watching each and everything. What I think I understand, and I think Nitin, you will be knowing better, that there is this time the agreement has been in a written form. There's an agreement that, okay, so these are the things which we are going to do, which I think is a good thing, so that at least people, that much more seriousness is there. So as I see it, you will find a gradual disengagement followed by de-escalation. But my only a slight worry is that the kind of, although in India we don't want to blow it up, and kind of chest painting sort of a thing happen, but then things will come in a manner that India is one, and such like things may happen. The Chinese should not take it, and take a firm stand somewhere else. That is the only thing. If the disengagement should lead into further de-escalation along all the kind of places, what my wish is.
In fact, absolutely right. We should be practical about what has happened. We should be confident about what we have done and be happy about it, but we should not be overly optimistic
Absolutely.
about the intentions, or
Absolutely.
overly, I mean, sort of, there should be no overconfidence in our own abilities,
Absolutely.
because we still have that power differential in many ways with the Chinese. But what has happened, one of the other gains that I wanted to speak about, and I think somebody is, Shrikant Sundaram has asked this question: will there be a surprise attack during summer? Not maybe, I mean, I'm putting my neck out here, not during this summer, certainly, because of what has happened so far. And there's something that we'll have to watch out for always. But one of the other gains, I think, is that for India, is that India has shown that it can stand up to a neighborhood bully. And for the loss for the Chinese is after Dolam or Doklam, it's the second time that they had to really, were forced to go back without gaining anything. Moving 90,000 or 60,000 troops, sitting there for so long, what have they gained at the end of it? It will all be analyzed later, maybe 10 days, 15 days, 1 month later. But the fact is, they have lost that standing, or that kind of aura that they had created in the minds of many people. There's this talk used to happen, you will remember, that many people used to say Chinese are 10 feet tall, their soldiers are better than us, they've got better tactics, weapons, and all that. I think it's all been disproved in this standoff. I think that's their loss, it's our gain. Would you agree?
Absolutely, there's no doubt, Srinath. During our face-offs, when we were there, some of the Chinese used to mention this, casually, when the things used to get heat, little slightly on the temperature used to go up and the tempers used to rise. That remember 1962. So our officers also used to give it back to them, and they used to say that this is not the India and the Indian Armed Forces of 1962. This is whatever 2017 and that particular year. So this mindset, definitely there is a thing which which of course that is already there on the with the troops of the armed forces. I think the nation as people today, we believe that if at all the Chinese show this bully kind of an attitude, I think we are ready to take on. I think that as a combined, it's just not the armed forces. I think the industry, the other people, everybody was there. So I think that self belief, and not overconfident, but the self belief is there that we can take on any bully.
Absolutely. In fact, the other gain here, in my view, is also been the fact that the MEA, the political leadership, the national security establishment, the military, including the Air Force and the Army, and the Navy in its own way, have really contributed to the kind of resolute stand that has been taken. I think that has come through very clearly. I mean, in fact, the Chinese were surprised when there was a MEA representative on the discussions or in Indian delegation. See, this whole of government approach has, I think, worked. And so, therefore, that's a gain for India. But Anurag Bari asked this question, was this aggression to distract our resources from Indian Ocean region to our northern border? Because Navy has got better percentage of budget allocation this year. I would venture out to say that, Navy always needs more money because of its capital intensive projects that it has. Ships need more money, huge money. Submarines need huge money, and it's a technology intensive service. Unlike the Army, which any case gets a bigger share because of its sheer size itself. But your thoughts on what he's asked?
See, I think this again is a common concern of lot many people, that one of the reasons, or one of the outcomes of this entire episode of India-China face off on the Ladakh borders is that now the resources will be now shifted from the Navy to the land forces. I don't think that is going to happen. Even if you see at this moment, I don't see there was a lot many new induction as far as the Army is concerned. Of course, we had the Rafale coming in, which was the Air Force thing, and the Navy continues to be. Being an Army man itself, but I am very sure that the future of the three armed forces, it is going to be the Indian Navy, and the Indian Ocean region is going to be the game changer. There's no doubt. So that focus, and that will continue. And Indian Army, with its own ways, with its own changes in its tactics, in its orbiting, and all those things, will continue to do what it needs to be. It needs to do it. On the borders. And again, as you rightly mentioned, that it is just not that Indian Army alone took a firm stand. It was the Air Force also played their role, and you rightly mentioned it is the Navy. It is not that China just saw that and they okay, fine, decide. It is a collective thing, and I think that there is not going to be any change in that strategy, is what my understanding is.
In fact, indeed, that is the thing. I think one of the losses for China, losses is a big word. I mean, I'm not using it. I'm not trying to use it in a loose manner. What I'm trying to say is that one of the setbacks for the Chinese, I would think, in this standoff has been that they couldn't really carry through the coercion that they had planned, the military coercion. They took us by surprise, as we all agree by now, but they couldn't really force their way through. And this whole notion or whole narrative that is there, that they have managed to get their 1959 claim line and therefore they withdrew, is also something that is not based on fact or facts. And I want to say this, I'm sure despite the fact that you were sort of concentrating on the Pangong Tso area, you know the history of Ladakh. The 1959 claim line, which was actually made public in 1960 by then Chinese Premier Zhou Enlai, was drawn on a small scale map, and it had just 3 points which had been joined on the map and said this is our claim line. Now let's take the example of Depsang, for instance. In Depsang, while the Chinese forces are giving Indian forces a face-off at Y Junction and not allowing them to go to these 3 petrol points, 10, 11 and 12, according to the 1959 claim line, which incidentally India has never accepted, the Chinese are supposed to be coming up to a place called Butse, about 8 to 10 kilometers inside from the Y Junction, west of the Y Junction or southwest of the Y Junction. Even India has not allowed them to come there for almost 13, 14 or 20 years now. So in a way, the Chinese have not been able to achieve their 1959 claim line, and they are just doing a face-off. It's not a loss of territory or capture of territory by the Chinese, is what people must understand, because only those who have been there or have studied the history would know that. And I want you to come in here, because I'm sure as a commanding officer there and later a student of history, military history, you would know these facts.
Absolutely, there's no doubt, Srinitin, that this 1959 claim line also is one of those narratives being built, to find at least some excuse that why did the Chinese come in. That is what it is. Otherwise, if you see, you rightly meant, there is nothing, there is no clear demarcated line. Okay, this is the 1959 claim line as per the Chinese. There's nothing. It is just those three dots, and in many of the places, then during 1962, they already crossed the 1959 line and they came in 1962 war. After the 1962 war, the so-called 1959 claim line also was crossed and they came in, and after that they went back in some places, and in some places they continued to be ahead of their so-called 1959 claim line. So it is nothing.
Exactly.
There is nothing like, they came up till 1959 claim line to say that they are once again, reinforced that 1959 claim line. It is nothing, because on ground there are, since 1962, even as per their own 1959 claim line, the Chinese are already ahead of it. So this thing is actually, again, it is far from the truth.
Absolutely. In fact, to our viewers, I just want to say this. Sometime last year, and we'll try and put this in the description of the YouTube video. I had done a program on my weekly program that I have called Simply Nitin, where I've actually shown the moving lines of the LAC, or the Chinese perfidy of creeping forward. They first claimed 1959, then they said 1960, and after 62, they went, like you rightly said, Colonel Dinny, they came much forward of the 1959 claim line, and then went back and said, okay, we will now, this part of that area will be ours. So please do take a look. It is there on the YouTube, on our StratNews Global YouTube channel. It will give you a little bit better understanding, the viewers I'm talking about, where this so-called 1959 claim line comes in there. But at this moment, one final comment from you, Colonel Dinny. I think this is the map I think my producers were trying to show. But the fact is, the entire video also has the details of what happened in 62 and how the 59 claim line was there. But coming to you, the final comment that I want from you, from here on, what should be India's priorities? Capability building, infrastructure building, or training for high altitude mountain warfare, or also keep better visual ISR capabilities, or all four? Your thoughts?
I think all four, Srinath. There's not there. I don't think everybody will agree with it, that it has to be all four. And but but in some little more priority, I think I will still give infrastructure, because till the time infrastructure comes in, like when I was the battalion commander, there are a lot of, and the present army commander and all were there, that they another army commander, we pushed in a lot of stuff, and right in front of us, when we started having a place where the troops could stay and operate, it made a lot of difference. Now if you come to the rear and then go for patrolling, and to stay there, it's very difficult to stay there. But if you stay there, your focus on the line of actual control, the maintaining the integrity of the line of actual control increases. So therefore the first is definitely infrastructure. Both roads also, there are many places, especially towards hot spring area and all, where there are still no roads and all, so that those things have to come up, and I'm sure it will come up in the coming years. So once that comes,
I think we have just lost him, one of those connectivity issues. But we will try and reconnect to him. But what Colonel Denny was saying is actually supplementing what I've observed over the years, and of course in the last 6 months, and also during this trip in the last 2 days that I managed to make to Leh. I didn't go anywhere forward like last time. But the fact is, India has really stood up to the challenge, has risen to the challenge, I would say, and stood up to the Chinese. That should be the correct expression. But also, small little lessons have been learned for the future. Small little lessons and small little experiences that will come in handy for the future, which I will cover in my weekly program, Simply Nitin, this week, this Saturday. Do watch that. And do keep watching StratNews Global. Unfortunately, we have lost Colonel Dinny at the moment, but he's been a great sort of resource to give us insights about Pangong Tso, which most people knew only Pangong Tso as the place where the three idiots shooting took place. And Colonel Dinny, I was just saying that you've been a great resource and great insights you've provided. Your final thoughts. You were talking about infrastructure, roads, and then the next 2 points, and then we'll end here.
Yeah, just finally, that as far as the high altitude training and all are concerned, we are actually, I think we are very well off, more than any other army today as on date. We have experience enough. So I think infrastructure is the key. And once infrastructure comes, you will see a lot of change in the attitude of Chinese also. I think the issue here, if you can put it, is because that India, is there to challenge them, and India is there because of the improvement in infrastructure.
True, absolutely, and thanks once again for being such a important part of our programs and giving us insights, and to our viewers, factual insights, not laced with bias or narratives that people want to build. We will keep discussing this as we go along. This is not the end of the story. I'm sure we Chinese will remain India's biggest adversary in years to come and decades to come, I'm sure. So we will rejoin whenever required. But thanks for your time and your insights.
Thank you, Sri Nitin. A pleasure to be on your show. Thank you.